Get started. Om. 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 Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavatam Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Kraditam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Mridavarshini Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Anusandathami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pulla Ravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraika Panaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetam Drutatuhe Namaha. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangapada Panishadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyana Vastita Datkatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginaha Yasyantam Navidhu Sura Suraganaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyaha Mokshayishyami Ma Shuchaha. So we just began with the 7th chapter in the last class, where we talked about the overview and everything. And today we'll be entering into the first 3 shlokas. Hopefully we'll do all the 3 and we'll see how it goes. So as a reflection point, just like last time we talked about, which is so far we have totally understood that the personality that I exhibit outside is really not my true identity. So we always project ourselves as, as a scientist, as a mother, as a father, as, not just the fact that the role I play, but also the extended roles, right? So that is how we constantly look at this. And in all this, with Krishna giving that highest knowledge, Arjuna looks at himself and he says, I am, you're telling me that I'm this, somebody who, that I'm beyond this finite mortal person that I am. How can I really be this entire limitless infinite, right? But to some extent, it kind of sort of dawns on him that this is who I think I am. Now, why did he feel that way? Why did he feel that he really cannot be this infinite, limitless nature? Well, here was this Arjuna who was going through all kind of issues. I guess who doesn't go through these issues, right? What he was going through. He had family issues. He had mental issues. All these kind of issues that was bothering him. And that is why we saw the first chapter, which was called as, the Vishada Yoga. Vishada meaning that yoga of dejection. So he was actually going through all this. Here he was going through it. And so, Krishna really tries to pull him out of it by giving him this great vision of really of this infinite, limitless nature of who he is. But then Arjuna just doesn't get it. So that's when, you see in second chapter that he, Krishna gives him this knowledge of karma, starts to give him, after this biggest vision, he tells him about what karma yoga is. But then even with karma yoga, after he has said it, you saw that in third chapter, Krishna goes into great elaboration of karma yoga because he recognizes that just like all of us, Arjuna really did not have the purity of his mind. In order to grasp such a great vision and in order to even understand, what karma yoga is, and this is why, I sent that video out about this person, Muhammad, the purity of the mind has to be there. And that purity of mind was so evident in that video when you see even, somebody like Muhammad just breaking out into not just Bhagavad Gita, but so many different Sanskrit shlokas from all our Shastras, and here I'm reminded of even this great Dr. Abdul Kalam. Abdul Kalam was another person, who is from a different religion, but then the essence of what he was portraying was nothing but pure karma yoga, right? So you see all these people who are able to do their own duties so selflessly, so uncompromisingly, as nothing but as a worship of a God, and then accepting all these results. So we saw all this. Then in the fourth chapter, we saw the knowledge of incarnation, where Krishna says, Yada Yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. So whenever there is a decline of dharma, he comes there. So we saw that in the fourth chapter. So truly what is happening is, you see in Bhagavad Gita, there is a flow of information which is taken step by step. It is first taken from our own, where we are, we're finite person here. And slowly we need to recognize ourselves as being part of this bigger whole. That's where you see Krishna is taking this person, this Arjuna through, and us also. So after the fourth chapter, you see the fifth chapter is where, again, Krishna is preparing Arjuna to the next level. So first, he's given this information. Then in the fifth chapter, slowly, and the fourth chapter, he tells him also about, what his nature truly is and how, explaining about, how he comes to take care of the problems, all that. Then in the fifth chapter, slowly, this knowledge has to sink in. So in order for the knowledge to sink in, the fifth chapter gives you some more information. It's almost like, you're preparing the bed, before you plant your roses. Before you plant your roses, you want to make sure, the mud, the right soil has to be put, the right level of, water has to be given there, the right kind of mineral, mineral food has to be there. So all this, he's preparing the fifth chapter, and finally in the sixth chapter, we are given this knowledge of meditation, because of which this knowledge that was talked about in the previous chapters can just sink in. So, and all this is constantly necessary for us, because even as we are connected to this world, tends to throw challenges at us every day, differently. But the idea is this world really real? And is this world really what is giving me all these issues? Like, for example, my boss having too much expectations from me, my colleagues being jealous, or, the supermarket, somebody's getting mad at me. All that, is that really real? That's another thing that, it makes us ponder. Or is it something that my impression of the world is now coming back to me like a boomerang and affecting me? So this part of it also, slowly you see how we can understand that any kind of issues, any kind of problems, any kind of challenges that I face in the world or within my family or even within myself, all these are essentially what I have perceived of the different person or of the world and everything. So all this, some things that, slowly and slowly, this aspect of looking at the world as a whole, that part of it truly comes out in the seventh chapter. So in the seventh chapter, then finally this aspect of, and I will talk a little more about Jiva Jagat Ishvara. So slowly and slowly we are shown what really this world is, and what exactly is, how do I look at this whole world? So this pictures that I showed last time, purposely I showed the sea of people in different ways, and within a family itself, is to show that ultimately this entire thing is Jagat. It is in this kind of a world we have to live in. And in order to live in, I need to know, who am I? What is my designation? Of course, all this, what is my responsibility towards the world? If I forget this world and everything what I'm doing, then really, who am I? Otherwise, I'll be in my own shell, right? So I have to clearly understand first, who am I, which is why the Twampada was introduced, Twam meaning you, and Twampada is a very Vedantic word there. So having introduced that, now my relation with the world, that's the second step of an evolution. So that evolution is where, we are looking at the whole Jagat. I need to find that, so when I do this, I come to have the right relationship with the world itself. If you remember in self-unfoldment, in the very first chapter of freedom, he talks about the art of right contact. The art of right contact with the world is, the world has been given to sharpen my own abilities, to make me more agile, more alert and everything. And he compares this, the sharpening of the knife. Nobody sharpens a knife these days, but in the olden days, you used to take the knife and sharpen it on the stone to make it sharp, right? So too, the world is really given to us to sharpen my own intellect and to recognize that I'm not alone. I'm actually part of the world, right? So that is why the concept of this Jiva Jagat Ishvara is important. So I understand who I am. I understand what this world is all about. And from there on, I actually look at who created this world. So the seventh chapter slowly builds into all this. And by doing so, I then finally develop what we say is a relationship of this Jiva, that is who I am, to the Jagat, and then finally to understand that Jad Jagat is none other than a form of that great Ishvara, the creator of the world. So Jiva Jagat Ishvara, the relationship between the created and the creator, that part of it is where we are ultimately going to it. And when I do this, when I see that relation, then I really totally understand how I can dedicate myself to that creator. So this whole relationship has to be understood well. Who is God? What does he do? What is my relation to him? All that, when it is very clear, that really leads to the complete surrender or complete love for God itself. So this is why we are just gave that again a short introduction to the seventh chapter itself. So you find that all that was with that kind of the connection between the first six chapters to the seventh chapter is now is being established, and you see that Krishna opens this particular chapter by promising Arjuna that he will give him the entire knowledge. And that knowledge, what he's going to give him, is really so absolutely without any doubts, and it is so exhaustive that Arjuna will have absolutely no questions at all. So he's essentially preparing the student. He's really happy with how Arjuna has progressed so far. Arjuna has been asking the right questions at the right time. And with these kind of questions, Arjuna, has sort of grasped everything what he's done, and he's really ready for the next level. So so far as we can see, Arjuna's questions many times was also connected with himself. How can I, this mind of mine is so restless, or, this is just impossible. Or, even in sixth chapter, he asks questions, what if something happens to me and here I am trying to progress? What if something everything that I did, has it gone for a waste? So everything was about that. But towards the end, he really wants to know that, when Krishna tells him about the various type of students who have come to him and who is the best student and everything, that's when Krishna feels that, okay, Arjuna is now ready for the next knowledge. So the foundation has been laid, and therefore he starts with the first shloka. So we chanted last time, I've just chanted one more time. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Saktamanaf Partha Yogam Yunjanmadashrayah Asamshayam Samagram Mam Yathagnyasya Tachrunu. So he says, Mayi Asakta Manaha Partha Yogam Yunjanmadashrayah Asamshayam Samagram Mam Yathagnyasya Tachrunu. So, with your mind completely on me, O Partha, by practicing this yoga and taking refuge in me, without doubt, come to me. And also knowing totally about me, I will tell you this entire knowledge. You need to hear this from me. So we saw the shloka last time, we had started it. I want to go a little deeper into this shloka because there is so much in just this one shloka. One may say, that's, I think I got it. There is really nothing much here, right? That's what you would think. But every word in this is so powerful. Starting with, let's start with the very last word in here, which is shrunu. Shrunu. Now, what is really shrunu? Shrunu is nothing but listening. So he says, Krishna is saying, hey, Partha, and we'll come to also the word Partha and everything, what it means here. But he says, Shrunu, now why does Krishna says, hey, Partha, listen? The minute you say listen, and I just remembered this one story of Samartha Ramdas. Samartha Ramdas was the teacher for Chhatrapati Shivaji, the great warrior, of Maharashtra. So the Samartha Ramdas, I think when he was very young, his parents, wanted to get him married off. And so I somehow this scene is so still vivid in front of me when I saw this drama. So they take him, to the marriage pandal, and there, the girl is there, and he's just about to marry her. And at that time, the priest, he says, Savadhan. Savadhan is a word. Savadhan, being actually, essentially it means be alert or something like that, So the minute he heard the word Savadhan, he just ran away from that mandapa. The reason was because that word immediately told him, what am I doing here? I'm getting into this samsar. I'm getting into the samsar, which is again going to bring so much amount of its own set of problems and troubles and everything. Do I really want to get into this? And of course, he was, a great Mahatma. So he understood what that Savdhan was. He just ran from there, So just at one listening, that aspect of listening, that is what I wanted to explain here. So here you see, Krishna is telling Arjuna, Savadha, Shrunu. So why does he say Shrunu? Was really Arjuna so deep into meditation? He did that 6th chapter. Did he really get into meditation or something? Or was he really distracted? Or no, he basically was again preparing Arjuna's mind for something new. Because, so far it was all about him, right? About Arjuna. But here, he wants to now tell him about himself, that is about Krishna. So he needs to prepare him. And, it's also like, when you're sitting in, the plane, at that time, your mind is totally available for, the air hostess. So she says, ladies and gentlemen, and she says, I have the safety briefing. So with that, so immediately your mind is like, you have to listen to her because, she's saying something really very important. So we don't take anything for granted, right? So with that, Krishna, says Shrunu, and this art of listening is such an important aspect for all of us. If I can just, when somebody is telling me something, I just listen without any of these gadgets around. And if my attention is 100%, then I don't need anything else, And those days, that's what this art of listening was so good, because they didn't have notebooks. I mean, we are all from the generation of notebooks where we write our notes and everything. But these days, we are in the generation of gadgets where everything is taken down on the phone, or maybe not even on the phone, because even as you are listening to something, we think we have to multitask because somebody else is looking at the phone for texting, or maybe there's something else with so many different apps on our phone. So many things is happening here, right? So Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna, hey, I'm trying to tell you something which is very, very important. So Shrunu, listen to me. What is it? Why should I listen? Because I'm going to tell you something very important. After knowing this, yatha jnasyasi, because when you listen to me, where what I'm going to tell you, you will actually know everything about me. You will actually totally surrender to me. Here, we have talked about all these steps about how Arjuna could not, even though Krishna told him that whole vision of really what this whole world is about, this whole essence of Vedanta, but Arjuna was not ready for it because his mind was distracted, his mind was dejected, so he could not listen. So here, yatha jnasyasi, once you know this whole thing, you will totally come to me. Yatha jnasyasi tachnu. Tat referring to, again, that aspect of who Krishna's real identity is also. So it is that tat. We said tat tvam asi, right? So you see, in the very first shloka itself, Krishna is now introduced about what is he going to talk about, and that is about that infinite self. Now, two very important words here, asamshayam and samagram. Okay. Samagram mam, without doubt, you will comprehensively know about me, or comprehensive, you know totally about me. Samagram base asamshayam. Samshayam means a doubt. Asamshayam means without any doubt at all. So absolutely no doubt, no vagueness, no ambiguity at all. Absolutely no question. So today for us, it's not like that. When we, for example, go to a movie or something, let's say a James Bond movie or something, each one of us, based on what we think about James Bond, that is how we would receive that movie, right? So here he's saying, asamshayam, there is actually no ambiguity at all. No vagueness in what I'm saying. Whatever I'm saying, you will just totally get it. It's free from doubt, absolutely. Second thing, samagram. And actually this example that I gave is more connected with samagram. Samagram means actually free from errors. Free from errors. Let's take the simple Vedanta example, which we always give, right? I'm just walking out of my garage, and the time is just around 6 to 7 p.m., depending upon, where you are, just where dusk is going to happen. And you see something on the ground. Your mind was, you had just finished talking to somebody, and you had kept the phone down, and you walked out and you see something which is a long rope-like thing. And you just get startled. You feel, oh my God, this must be a snake or something. Now, why did that happen? Because my mind was already having some kind of errors or erroneous notion about something. So I superimposed what I had in my mind on that rope. Ultimately, it was nothing but a garden rope or something, or maybe, your rope to, not rope, sorry, tube to water the lawn. But here you have mistaken that for a snake, right? So this is what happens for many of us when I'm listening to something where somebody is telling me, I tend to, color it with something in my own mind. And this creates this errors in how I'm listening. So here Krishna is saying, Asamshayam Samagram Mam. So you will know this completely about me by without any doubt and with absolutely no ambiguity, no vagueness, nothing at all. So now, how can that ever happen? How can I ever know something about anything without any doubt and without any this? I can read tons of books of Vedanta. I can listen as much as I can on the YouTube or anything, but without having a teacher to clarify my doubts, I'll never be able to move ahead. So to some extent, we have to listen, but I also need a teacher to do this. So this is where that without doubt Samagram, Krishna is telling Arjuna, because here you have Arjuna who is blessed with such a great teacher right in front of him, to whom he can always ask his doubts and get it clarified. So Asamshayam Samagram Mam, listen without any doubt, without any vagueness to what I'm trying to say. Mai asakta manaha. So now we are seeing the kind of a quality by which you want in the student. So which again he's going to give a little later too, but mai asakta manaha. So with complete attachment to me, one has to have 100% faith and devotion to whoever it is. This is even in the regular world. I need to have that complete faith. I mean, even I'm working for an organization. If I'm constantly doubting, my boss's intentions or anything, I will never be able to be a good employee. I need to choose an organization where I'll be most comfortable, where it is in line with my values, where it is where my boss and the higher management are really people for whom I can look up to and everything, right? So that is my asakta manaha, which is completely attached to me. Here he's saying that can, Krishna is telling, have complete, attachment only to me. So again, when we say, look at this word asakta, sakta, meaning attachment. We get very attached to vishayas, objects and everything, which pulls our mind away. So Krishna is saying, no, don't do that. Just whatever you do it with complete love for me. Mai asakta mana. Just change your direction on how you're doing things. Now, we may say, but what does that mean? Here I am with my family. I am attached to my wife, my parents, my children. All Krishna is saying that, think of them as me in those forms. Don't think of them as people, but think of me in that form and love them in that way. You just have to change the attitude in which we are viewing people or we are viewing objects. So fill your mind with that love, and then you'll be able to understand me. So that is his Mai Asakta Manaha. And Madashrayaha. We said last time, Ashraya means the support. So generally for us, our support is in many other things. Our support is in, a phone, a house. All this is really our comfort or a security blanket, if you will, that's where it is. But here he's saying, Madashraya, keep me as a goal. And when you do that, you'll be able to understand me. So for that, Madashrayaha, again, you need a very highly developed intellect Because if I just allow my mind to act, my mind will find its ashraya in so many different things. But I need my buddhi to push me ahead to think about what is really my true long-term sustaining effort, which is that absolute God. So he says this. Then we say, the next words in the same shloka, yogam yunjanma ashrayaha, madashrayaha, yogam yunjanma. I'm sure you must be remembering some of the phrases in the 6th chapter. There also he says yogam yunjan. Try to be in that yoga, So because our mind again seems to run everywhere, so bring that mind together and make the buddhi or the intellect, completely try to keep it in this yoga, which is madashik, in the aspect of who Krishna is, and do it that way. So now, our knowledge should be free of doubt. Our knowledge should be also with no ambiguity at all. And then when I'm learning from a teacher, I'll be able to move ahead in my own evolution, right? So all this is great, but then there is also one other thing, which is the student. The student has to be completely ready for it. The student should have that mental frame to listen to such a knowledge. And when I do that, I can actually, so the student's quality is also brought out in the shloka here. So I just wanted to introduce this one term called Anubandha Chatushtaya. I think some of you might be familiar with this. Does anybody remember what Anubandha Chatushtaya means? Where you may have heard this term? I don't know, Amlan, do you remember? Or even Madhuri? Meenu, do you remember? Do you know what Anubandha Chatushtaya means?
No, Sunitha.
Okay. Yeah, Meenu, you have something to say?
I forgot it.
Okay, so this is the very first thing in Tattva Bodh itself. Yeah, Tattva Bodh he talks about in the very first shloka, and it has come, of course, in Bhagwan Adi Shankaracharya introduces this term. Anubandha Chatushtaya basically is Chatushtaya means 4.
Yeah.
So for any knowledge to sink in, first, the adhikari, who is a good student, a qualified student, so
also samadama, mamukshutam, tatiksha.
So that is sadhana chatushtaya.
Sadhana chatushtaya.
That is sadhana chatushtaya, but this is anubandha chatushtaya. That is, what is the topic of the text. In Tattva Bodh, it comes beautifully. So what is the topic? Who is the adhikari? And then what do I get out of it? Phalam. What is my phalam? What is the fruit, or what is the outcome? And then sambandha. Sambandha means what is the relationship between the revealer and the revealed. That's the aspect. So 4 things: adhikari, or the student. Then what is the topic, or vishaya? Adhikari, vishaya. Then what do I get out of it? What is a phalam? And then sambandha, what is the relationship between the topic and the outcome? So here we say the revealer and the revealed, or here you can say the topic and the outcome. So all these 4 things are very important when a text is being written. So for example, there is an author who wants to write a book, okay? So Shankaracharya is already, he's defined so clearly that whenever any text or a book, or even a simple thing, a poem, or even an article, whenever that is being written, at least these simple 4 things have to be kept in mind. Now, suppose, somebody just writes a poem saying that, the world is beautiful, this is great, that is great. It just goes on the description part of it, but there is no indication of what is truly the topic. There are many, many things that are talked about, but where is the focus? If that is not there, then, that book doesn't attract our attention so much. So the topic has to be very clear. Then who is it intended for? So, for example, now for Bhagavad Gita, you're all listening to it, But can you ask Laya, for example, I'm just looking at Madhuri's granddaughter, can we ask Laya and say, Laya, come and sit down and listen to Bhagavad Gita? She's not going to listen to it. So she's not a good adhikari yet, So adhikari is a qualified student. The topic or vishaya here is, for example, we're talking about that ultimate Paramatman consciousness, right? And then what is the outcome out of it? Because the outcome is, if I pay attention to this, I will come to know that ultimate reality. So that is the phalam. So sambandha is where now the topic, vishaya, and the final outcome, about God, that is completely established. So all these four elements are very important when somebody embarks on writing about something. That is Anubandha Chatushtayasm. So here in this one shloka, all those four things are given. He refers to Hey Partha. So Partha also, apart from the fact that he's Prithu's son, but here he is also, and also, so there are, the word Partha also here is referring to the person who is the right eligible person. He's the right qualified student. So Arjuna was a qualified student here. But Partha is also that person who considers the goal of life, who is very clear about the goal of life, or wealth of life. So Partha, from that point, so the adhikari is told, adhikari means the student who's ready for such a knowledge. And then the vishaya, which is about that tat. So tat, that was also given here. Then, yatha jnasisi tat shrunu. Once you know that, you will know it. So that sambandha was also created. And finally, what is the phalam? What is the goal of it? It is nothing but that absolute reality. That is, if we know that absolute reality in totality, in complete thing, there is nothing else that need to be known. So, just interesting thing for all of us from where we are, we spend the first 50 or 60 years of our life, in this world, knowing about this itsy bitsy thing. And that small itsy bitsy thing, we make it such a big deal. We spend so much amount of time. But what Krishna is telling Arjuna, or for that matter, our Vedanta Shastras are saying, what you really have to know is not what you're working on all these years. The real thing you have to know is me. So Krishna is telling, you have to know me. And once you know me in totality, there is absolutely nothing you actually need to know. You don't need to go around getting multiple PhDs after you're 60. Many people do that. Of course, it is very important because it is their vasanas, right? It's their vasanas which they have to exhaust. They have to do it. But for such people, if they truly touch shrunu, and that is why the word shrunu is mentioned here, touch shrunu. If you listen, and that's why that in our Shastras again, we believe that this shrunu, listening, is the most important activity. If I really listen well with 100% attention, then I don't need to do anything. In the sense, even like between Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam, Shravanam is the most important activity of all the three. People may say that isn't Nididhyasanam the most important, the meditation? No. If I listen very well, then that will almost lead to all, what he said, asamshayam samagram. There will be no doubt at all because I have listened to it well. But then samagram, which is free of errors, if my mind is very clear, without any errors, without any my own misconceptions about things, and I've listened to it without any doubts, no questions at all, then this information, I will just grasp it just like that. So you see how much there is in just this one shloka. The very first shloka is just so powerful, so I thought I would take this time to explain this aspect from just the first one. Any questions or any thoughts about this one, first shloka? Okay, so let's move on to then the second shloka. So then the question may arise, what is he really trying to say? What is Krishna? How is he going to elaborate on the subject about himself? Okay, so let's chant the next shloka. Jnanam teham savijnanam. Jnanam teham savijnanam. Idam vakshyamya sheshataha. Idam vakshyamya sheshataha. Yajñātvā neha bhūyonyat. Yajñātvā neha bhūyonyat. Jñātavyamavashishyate. Jñātamavyashishyate. Jñātamavyayashishyate. Jnanam teham savijnanam. Idam vakshyamya sheshataha. Yajñātvā neha bhūyonyat. Jñātamavyavashishyate. So he says, Jnanam te aham savijnanam. So to you, to te aham, so to you, scriptural together with realization arising from it. Okay, so jnanam, which is scriptural knowledge, and then vijnanam, which is understanding the realization from it. Idam vakshyami, vakshyami. So again, from that vakshyami, you can understand that he's referring to himself. Aham vakshyami. So aham vakshyami, idam vakshyami, asheshataha. This I shall declare to you, after which there is nothing more that needs to be done here. Yad jnatva na iha bhuyaha anyat. Knowing which nothing more. Yat jnatva, knowing that. This, if you remember from Madhuri, from our Sanskrit days, learning days, jnatva, the twa pratyaya is here. Twa pratyaya, yat jnatva. Na iha bhuyaha anyat. There's nothing more. Jnatam avashishyate. Then nothing more really needs to be known here at all. So this seventh chapter is actually called as Jnana Vijnana Yoga. And this is again, so you see in the first chapter, Anubandha Chatushtaya, why this one, all that is introduced. But here, he introduces these, so Jnanam, which is, like I said, is knowledge in a very general sense. Okay, I may know that this is an iPhone, but what good is it if I don't know how to use this phone, right? I may know, that's why knowledge, we may know knowledge of many, many things, but then wisdom is gained only in very few things. So what is Vijnanam? Vijnanam is actually the fruit of the practice of the Jnanam. Once I know what it is, then I start to use it. I start to really talk about it. I become an expert. And that's when we call somebody as a wise person, because the wise person has not only the theoretical knowledge, but also knows how to apply that knowledge. So when the person knows how to apply the knowledge, when anybody goes to such a person with a question, that person will be able to understand the questioner very well. From where is this question coming from? And then accordingly give the right reply. So that is why both Jnanam and Vijnanam is very, very important. So one may say then, okay, I know what is Jnanam and what is Vijnanam, but then the steps taken from a jnanam or a jnani to a vijnani is that person should have practiced that knowledge a lot. So there's a huge amount of sadhana that is involved for that knowledge to really sink in. So such powerful shlokas here, which is when I listen to any knowledge, my next thing, I should be able to make it doubt-free, make it completely something that I really want. And when I start to practice it a lot, then it will help me to really become an expert, or like I said, really understand that knowledge in its entirety. Without that, otherwise it will only remain in the books and I can really not understand what that whole knowledge is about. So that is the idea behind. Now, Bhagwan Adi Shankaracharya, he basically says that this Vijnanam ultimately is that self-realization. So here, we're listening to Bhagavad Gita, we're listening to this knowledge of it, but it has to lead to that Vijnanam. So he goes to the very highest level. Jnanam, it's more of a duality. Okay, this is the knowledge, but Vijnanam is, I am that knowledge. So getting to that state of Vijnanam is where he says is, so this is actually the essence of what this chapter takes you to. It really takes you to that ultimate understanding what that self-realization itself is. So we have never talked about self-realization. We have not talked about really what is that moksha. So far, we've been talking about a lot of the knowledge aspects. So that is why he says, jnanam and savijnanam. Jnanam te aham savijnanam. So to you, I'm going to say all this because, knowledge is only useful to some extent, but I need to bring that complete knowledge into my own psyche. So that he says that. So now the next shloka is just another very beautiful shloka. It is the shloka where now, how this actually I'll be taking up a little more in the next session, but it really tells you about who is really a human being, which is, if you remember in, again, Kindle Life, I think. In Kindle Life, Swami Chinmayananda talks about human being of various gradations. He talks about, how a human being can be a stone man, can be an plant man. I mean, man means not man, just a human being, and an animal man, ultimately to a human being. He talks about this. So having, in the second shloka where Krishna has told Arjuna now about the fact that, this knowledge, what is it that takes us from a knowledge to Vijnanam? The kind of sadhana also depends upon the kind of person I am. Only when I know who the kind of person I am, will I be able to put more effort. Am I a kind of a stone man, which is, I'm very tamasic and lazy. So what kind of sadhana should I really do? Or am I something a little more evolved, like a plant thing, so I can actually at least maybe walk, instead of being a couch potato, I can actually walk and get a tea for myself. Okay, then, or whatever, then moving on to graduating myself to doing even bigger things, right? So I'll just introduce the shloka here. We'll talk a few aspects, but this shloka is something really powerful. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatataamapi siddhanam kaschin mam veti tattvataha. Kaschin mam veti tattvataha. So you see that gradation, and I think I have a very beautiful slide which I made maybe for Drigdrisha Vivek, I think, when I was teaching Drigdashya Vivek, and I'll bring that up next time, because there's so many aspects in that slide which you'll be able to relate to. So Manushyanam Sahasreshu, among thousands, Sahasra, among thousands of men. Actually, thousands means not just thousands, millions of men, Manushyanam Sahasreshu, Kaschit, maybe, there's one, Kaschit Yatati Siddhaye. Perchance, maybe there'll be one person who's really striving for perfection. Oh, this is just so beautiful because, truly, again, staying in this Adi Shankara Nilayam, you think about Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya, whose birthday is coming up soon. The Shankara Jayanti is coming up on Tuesday, April 25th. And here we are all planning a lot for that event to come. Only yesterday we had a beautiful elocution competition where about 8 children spoke about Bhagavan Shankaracharya. That was an elocution competition on Shankara, various aspects of Shankara, So, Kaschit Yatati Siddhe, perchance one really strives for perfection. Shankaracharya, in just 16 years, and by 32, he was already had left his mortal body. How much he has achieved. He has gone walking the breadth of India, from all the way from Kanyakumari to Kashmir, at least twice, established 4 different mathas. How many disciples? How much today, even today, if we're talking about him, it's just such a coincidence that we're talking about this shloka, we're talking about it because of Shankara Jayanti coming up. So, Kaschit Yatati Siddhaye, perchance one strives for perfection. Yatatam api siddhanam. And even among those who are striving for that, to know me, that tat, which is referring to in the second shloka, Kaschid mam veti tatvataha. Only one maybe will actually know me, in a sense. So what a ladder, this ladder starts with small, then big steps to really get to know ultimately that person, Kaschid Yadati Siddhanam. So Krishna doesn't mince words, and you see that is also in our Shastras. That's the greatness about the Eastern knowledge. Both when you compare Eastern knowledge and Western knowledge doesn't spend too much on the details. They just expect that the student is already perfect. The student already is up there. All they need is just give them a little bit of knowledge and then they will reach, So that's what I see in that ladder. When one person may strive, even among those few people who strive, there is one person who may become successful, Here we strive a lot on losing weight and everything. That is the biggest thing for us. But those days, people were not even thinking about the mortal body or anything, but in the mental level, how much they can actually pursue this, right? So human birth is indeed extremely rare, because we have talked about before how there is about 84 million species in this world. And among this million species, to even take birth as a human being is so very rare. And even among those rare people, how much can we, is a person who absolutely would know Krishna. So I had a few more things I thought I would say, but that'll need some more discussion. So we will finish here. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shantihi. Om purnamadav purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate. Purnasya purnamadaya purnameva vashishyate. Om shanti shanti shantihi. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.